This podcast is about the topic of letting go and learning to let go. Sometimes this is one of the most difficult things that we face that challenges us from a young age into our teenage years, into our adulthood, and so on. And obviously, letting go can be a common trait that happens in lots of situations, from friendships to relationships to work patterns to forming lasting relationships you have in your life. You know, the person you marry, the person you perhaps settle down with. These things echo, I guess, into those specific relationships. Now, from different aspects of people's lives, you can relate to this topic in various ways. So from your teenage years, you might have been in a group of friends where perhaps your parents were saying to you, they're not a good person for you to hang around with, and this person is a better person for you to have friendship groups with. And sometimes in that teenage rebellion stage, we're often dismissive of what our parents say. Sometimes their heart is in the right place and sometimes it isn't. And sometimes it's a battle, isn't it, between you and your parents, and trying to find your voice and trying to explain to them why you want to keep that friendship zone, why you want to keep those people in your life. Sometimes your parents, I guess, see things that you don't necessarily see, but you also see trigger points within that friendship group. You might realise that this particular person I'm associating my time with isn't the right person for me. Now, these sometimes have a knock-on effect later on in our life as well. And, even in our work groups, we have situations where we don't let go of certain people that we are around in the workplace. It could be that you are in a particular clique or group where you are somebody that's hardworking, you are someone that gets on with the tasks, you are someone that is motivated, or you could be the opposite. You could be doing all of those things I've just mentioned, but you're part of the clique that likes to talk about others, that likes to gossip about others, that likes to be derogatory about others. We all have our, perks, we all have our pros and we all have our cons. And there are things about us that I guess makes us a human being, sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a not so good way. But there are times when we find it very, very hard to let go of being part of that rat pack, part of that group, I guess. Okay, even though we see that what that person or individual group is doing is not really for the greater good. There are situations in our personal relationships where also we struggle to let go. And it could be that you've got an argument, you've got a disagreement. And there are times as well, I think on a bigger scale, we don't realise it, that we're bringing in past pain, past trauma into those relationships. And we haven't let go of that baggage. We haven't let go of past incidences that carry on and mirror and show the patterns of behaviour that really we haven't resolved, we haven't eradicated, we haven't moved on from, because unfortunately, without us realising it, we're still repeating the same cycles and same patterns of behaviour and expecting different results, but it comes back to bite us in the face. There are situations where perhaps in our friendships as well, in our friendship circles, as we've got older, there are certain friends that you associate with and you think that they are the friend that's got your back, the friend that supports you, the friend that always will be by your side, no matter the good, bad, ugly, is a coin as I keep reusing again and again. But sometimes you sit back and you realise that actually that friend hasn't got the best intentions for you, has got their own agenda, has got their own bias, has got their own propaganda, I guess. And, they sometimes will make ultimatums with your decisions that you make for yourself and for your life without you realising it. And you get to a crossroads where, unfortunately, you have to sit back and think, as much as I love that person and I respect that friend, it's time that I just let go. It's time that I just let that relationship dissolve and let it be whatever it will be, whether it will be a distant relationship, whether it's a relationship that unfortunately has frazzled and has burnt out because you now are doing different things to what that person expected, and so on. Sometimes in, job situations, you might have been so geared up, working ever so hard to try and get a situation where you have tried really hard to get a particular job promotion, and unfortunately, no matter what you've done, no matter how you've tried to excel yourself, no matter how much you've tried to really steer yourself forward and, do all above and beyond getting that particular job, and find that somebody else gets it. Somebody that perhaps, in your opinion, has less experience than you, less motivated than you, somebody who's a bit of a yes man or yes woman, I guess. And it can be very disheartening to see that individual take, the prize, which is the job promotion, the something that you're working extremely hard for. And it can leave us with a bitter taste, can't it, sometimes? We don't see why the other individual has got it. Now, sometimes these things happen where, you are the more higher candidate in experience and skills. Perhaps you didn't get the job down to money reasons. Perhaps it would cost the company more to basically take you for that particular position. And in other cases, they don't necessarily want you with that experience. They want to give someone else that chance. But what we do as human beings is we hold on to that, bitterment, I guess, and we hold on to the rage and upset of not getting that promotion. And unfortunately, we don't learn to let go. And once we do learn to let go and realise that, hold on a minute, that job actually wasn't the right thing for me. Actually, that was a blessing, Again, a lot of this is about outlook, isn't it? It's about how you view the whole aspect of like letting go in regards to disappointment. Now, there are other situations where letting go can also be quite difficult within your own family, within your own network, within the people that you are with day to day. And this can be your community, depending on where you are raised, where you are brought up. The community can also be where you are living. It might be a different country to the country you are raised in. But the people around you, I guess, serve as that community instead. So there are times when there are other people's judgment and other people's expectations that are hindering your progress and letting you go forward. And you hold on to that without realizing it subconsciously. You hold on to other people's judgments. Sometimes the decisions that you make, whether you realize it or not, subconsciously, you are holding on to other people's expectations, other people's judgments. And these things are like, well, I wouldn't do that. And why are you doing this? And why are you doing those types of comments? We all know them, we're aware of them, we hear them perhaps on a daily basis. And unfortunately, it's criticism that enters our brain, it enters our heart, it enters our lives. And unfortunately, it drags us down, to the point where we can't let it go. We let it hinder and we let it be an obstruction to moving forward. And unfortunately, it's only when we move past some of those blocks, and again, patterns of behaviour, that we see that actually, I am able to do this, I am able to achieve, I am capable of doing this particular task. And I'm not sure why this other individual is putting that negativity out there. On a deeper note, there are times when, as I've already previously mentioned, there are times when we are carrying trauma from the past. Now, the trauma from the past has a huge impact on us as an individual. And the trauma can be mild trauma, it can be, middle range trauma, it can be severe trauma that triggers us into not letting go. Some situations may be abuse that we've encountered. It could be bullying. It could be mild, behaviour patterns, behaviour disorders. It can be eating habits, eating patterns, eating disorders. There's such a complex range now out there. It's not just one specific thing. But trauma has this unfortunate way of lingering and taking over and carrying on into our lives, where even though you are productive in some respects and you are moving on, moving forward, and you are achieving quite a lot of things in your life, despite the obstacles you faced in the past, certain aspects of trauma are like this old piece of luggage, I guess, this old battered suitcase that's gone around the world, and it's heavy. And you're carrying it around with you and you don't realise that it's interfering and it's sort of intermingling with certain aspects of your relationship And those patterns of behaviour and those old ways that necessarily don't work anymore are still being, brought up to the surface and are being used again and again and again. And we don't realise it. We don't realise as a human being that we're doing it. We don't realise, I guess, that that is still taking over our lives, and it is still having a knock-on mirror effect in our life. And the hardest thing is letting go, which is the topic of this podcast. Now, sometimes it takes a real hard shift, a real hard focus, a real hard look at yourself in the mirror, and look at yourself deeply, not just like from a physical level, but like a psychological level, a spiritual level, all the different dynamics of your id, your ego, your complex identities, and also the subconscious reasons and decisions as to why you're doing something in a particular way and still getting the same results. Now, there are times when we have to really, really look at ourselves and think about why we are acting and behaving in that particular way. And letting go, as I said, is one of the hardest things you can do. And I mean that from experience. When you look at yourself and you look at why you're doing things in a particular way, why you're behaving in a particular way, what your trigger points are, you realise that something within you has to change. Not necessarily the people around you, but something within you has to change. Whether that's you realising to yourself, I'm not going to do this anymore. Okay, so you can relate to some of this by some of the things that people do to release themselves out of trauma, and out of toxic relationships. Sometimes we get ourselves into various other let-outs, I guess, and we look at other obstacles, other situations, scenarios where we've used substances, for example, to escape. And it is hard to just look at yourself in the mirror and think to yourself, what am I doing? Why am I actually doing this? What is my outcome? Why am I hurting myself and the people around me? Sometimes that shake up and wake up moment takes a huge knock-on effect, because if you're serious about what you're doing, you will wake up and realise, I can't do this anymore. I can't continue to pretend to be like this anymore. I can't continue to be a follower and a sheep. I'd rather be my own person. Sometimes it could be that the resolution is you're realising that the people around you actually are having a negative impact and negative toxicity, I guess, within your inner realm. And their whole negativity and questioning and relating things to you and back to you and saying to you, well, I wouldn't do this and I wouldn't do this if I was you in my life. It's very easy for people to say that until they're in your shoes. And it takes a big, hard, strong person to be able to let go of some of those relationships that don't serve us anymore. Now that, like I said, it could be the friendships, it could be the relationships. Sometimes, unfortunately, it's parents as well. And it's hard to let go and totally let go, because like I said, this whole aspect has this massive weight on your shoulders, on your body, on your whole being, on your whole purpose. And it's not easy to strive forward, and it's not easy to go against the tide when everything seems like it's dark and gloomy, and there are times when there's rainbows and there's sunshine, but a majority of the time when you are working on yourself and you are working on your self-esteem issues, your confidence issues, all the above that I've mentioned, it is hard to move past that because people unfortunately cast judgments. But part of the main big thing is you yourself learning how to let go and how to be within yourself and how to love self and how to accept self. And these are hard obstacles that we all face. And until you seriously let go of the baggage, you let go of the pain, you let go of the hurt, you let go of the trauma, and you surrender and accept that this is who you are. These are the things that have made you and broke you at times, but in general they have made you. You learn to move forward with your life. You learn to let go of that brake, I guess. You've constantly been driving in this car, one foot's on the accelerator, the other one actually is constantly on the brake because you're stopping yourself from actually moving forward and from persevering the things you wanted to do. Letting go of all that baggage, letting go of all that pain, finally allows you to be free. And it's a hard lesson we all have to learn. And sometimes in our lives we have different milestones where that happens. There's no set A to Z milestone on when you have to let go, because each of us obviously live in a different way, different lifestyles, different patterns. But for each of us, we realize that sometimes as you get older, hopefully you gain a bit more clarity and a bit more wisdom, and letting go becomes easier because you realize your own strength and you realize the importance of your own happiness, instead of trying very hard to fix the people around you and be the person around the community that they want, that they perceive. It's better to just be yourself. And trust me, that sometimes is extremely hard to do as well. But it's only when you let go of those specific areas of your life that are holding you back, that are restraining you, and in some ways almost like a straitjacket where you're confined to be someone you're actually not. It's very hard to move forward, but I'm sure that with time and with tenderness and with love of self, and that's where it starts, love of self, you move forward and you learn to let go.